What's up, Chris?
What's going on, Jay? Happy Tuesday to you.
Yeah, it's just another Tuesday in the month of January. Here we go.
That's right. They all blend together this time of year, I think.
Yes, they do.
But it's exciting to be here with you today. Welcome, everyone, to the Practice Playbook, the show where we help firm owners and wannabe firm owners navigate the road for their modern firms. I am Chris Guino. He is Jay Kimmelman, and we are the hosts of your show. Last week, we talked about strategies and tips to ensure that you're facilitating a better work-life balance and improving your mental health. We talked about being aware of the situation for you and your team, understanding what that means for you, making sure you've got a good support network, and ideas around setting boundaries and blocking your time to make sure you're able to focus on yourself. This week, we're taking a little more narrow focus. This is actually going to be show number 1 of a 2-part summary related to something that we haven't talked much about in the accounting profession more broadly, but that's starting to become more and more important, and that's marketing. So today we'll talk about the value of niching. We'll talk about content marketing like we're doing right now, and the power and the importance of social proof, and what that even means. But before we get to all of that, Jay, let's get to the news.
Yeah, it's a busy week.
It is a busy week. It was a busy week. It seems like the IRS was like, oh, it's a new year. Maybe I gotta do some things. And so they started by opening up Free File, which didn't even make the news list, Jay. But Free File opened on the 10th, so late last week, I guess that would be.
Yep.
And filing season is in session, or will be in session in a couple weeks' time, as they open up filing for everybody on the 27th. The IRS is expecting 140 million returns, Jay, by April 15th. So some of those will be extensions, but the idea is that there's 140 people filing, or joint people, or whatever it might be. That's a lot of returns, and a lot of opportunity. No shock that Intuit wants all of that business.
Yeah, for sure. Now, keep in mind, though, when the IRS says tax season is opening on the 27th, that is for the individual tax filer.
Right.
The business tax filer, it opens tomorrow. So if you have your financials done for your partnership, your S-Corp, go ahead and file it. You can start getting that stuff done now ahead of the March deadline for those pass-through returns.
Yeah, that is a great idea. If you're done by now, congratulations. Well done by you. That's an amazing effort, I'm sure. Yeah, you and your team tried really, really hard. Congratulations. Take advantage of being the first one in the door. If you've got a refund coming or something like that, that would be great. But yeah, personal returns in a couple weeks' time. 140 million returns. Whew, it's a bunch.
It's a lot.
Obviously, I think we mentioned this on Friday, but on this show, this is a relatively new topic, and that is that there was obviously a lot of devastation in the LA area, and the IRS is recognizing that by giving some tax relief to the folks that are in that area. They're allowing those returns to be extended to October, which is a very generous extension, but probably not worth all the sadness and heartache and everything that goes along with all the disaster that's happening there. So thoughts to the folks of LA. Hopefully the winds today weren't as bad as they expected them to be. I haven't followed the news today to see if it's getting any worse, but we're definitely thinking about folks out there for sure, as is the IRS. And then the IRS, like I mentioned, Jay, super busy this week. All kinds of new proposed regulations. Some of them pretty boring. Most of them pretty boring, to be honest. But that includes they offered up some guidance for plan administrators related to automatic enrollment and benefit plans. If you weren't aware, the Secure Act, the 2.0 Secure Act, requires that new benefit plans that were set in place in late 2022, I believe it was. That they require auto enrollment in the plan at a 3% rate unless people opt out. So plan administrators need to be aware of that. Super boring, but super helpful from your perspective. If you have somebody who's putting a new plan in place, to remind them of this requirement and make sure that they know that that's out there. And that, number one, that their plan's set up to support that. And then number two, that they have communicated that to people on their team so that they understand, like, that when this 3% starts coming out of their paychecks, that's actually the way it's supposed to be, unless they choose otherwise. There were also some proposed regulations around catch-up contributions and how those are being used. There was some proposed regulations around basis shifting stuff. So if you're doing some things in a partnership and you're shifting basis from one partner to another, or from one entity to another, that kind of deal, there's some rules around that now, or some proposed rules. And then finally, some proposed rules around clean vehicles for commercial use. And so, Jay, I love listing off these IRS regulations because one of my favorite questions is to ask you, Jay, how much does this stuff matter?
I mean, some of that, like the basis stuff, does matter, but I was looking at the details of the clean vehicle for commercial use, and it's like, why make it so difficult? Why does there have to be a calculation involved? Just let a commercial operation buy a clean vehicle and get a credit for it.
Right.
I mean, why does it have to have like 4 different factors? And let's just issue the credit and be done with it. If we're going to do it, let's not make them jump through 14 different hoops and then have to do half of them backwards the second time. I mean, come on.
Yeah. So maybe if you have the opportunity, speak out to your friends at the IRS and let them know these hoops. Too many hoops. Let's just give credits away. That is probably way better anyway, and certainly a lot easier to manage. But again, I like highlighting these things when I see them because you never know who touches what and how this can be valuable to you. You may have had a client just ask you just today, hey, I need a new van for the business. I'm thinking of buying an EV. What difference does it make? And now you know that, hey, maybe it does make a little bit of difference if you jump through these 14 hoops. So just know that these things are things that are out there, and that there are regulations. And if that sounds like something that impacts you, go take a look.
Well, you mentioned EVs and credits.
Yeah.
My former vehicle, the Jeep 4xe, and also the Jeep Cherokee or Grand Wagoneer, whichever one's the other plug-in hybrid, have been removed from the credit list.
Oh, that's not good.
I am not sure if they've sold enough to come off that list, or if the rules have changed. I haven't completely looked at that going into this year yet, so that's something that I am going to be paying attention to. But it caught my eye when it said that the Jeep Wrangler 4xe is no longer eligible. So
crazy. I wonder what the reason for that is. I'm sure there's something.
Yeah.
Maybe Jeep didn't make enough campaign contributions or something. I'm sure that's not it. But who knows? Who knows?
Yeah.
Anyway, that's that IRS and tax related news. So again, tax season, the filing season opening this week for businesses and in a couple weeks for people. In other accounting news, in the acquisition and financing corner, there were two things that acquisitions that showed up this week that I thought were of interest, and they both did the same type of thing. And I thought it was relevant to our conversation today because bigger firms, so Eisner Amner acquired a company that focuses on dental practice support and doing accounting and support for dental practices. So they were adding a very specific niche. And then BDO added a consultancy firm that focuses on like HR management and all of that kind of stuff to add a specific niche. And so you can see that these bigger firms are seeing a market opportunity to be able to expand a little bit through acquisition. And you can see how that could be valuable to a firm owner in that space, as well as for your firm to understand exactly what it is that you're focused on. And so again, we'll talk a little bit more about what that means going forward, but know that there's acquisition activity that's largely focused, at least this week anyway, largely focused on expanding this type of service offering, not so much just the breadth. So not like adding in different areas, but adding in very specific ways. So I thought that was interesting. And then Jay, this is now the third week that this has come up, at least. Our friends at the PCAOB made it back to the news, Jay. And this time it's because Sue Coffey of the AICPA threw a grenade at them At least that's the way that I read it. As you will recall, last week we talked about how the PCAOB was getting some pushback from some of the bigger accounting firms related to their metric reportings requirement, and Sue Coffey agrees with those accounting firms. She says that the AICPA doesn't want these things either. She indicated that though they were going to be burdensome, that they were going to be challenging, that they were going to be misinterpreted, and all the things that you would expect that those big firms would say when they're asked to do more compliance. And so I have mentioned several times that there's pros and cons to this particular thing. That's what I said from the very beginning, right? Like, extra clarity, extra reporting has value, but doing it for the sake of doing it is cumbersome. And so there's challenges on both ends, right? Like, it's nice to know that there was good quality review processes in place at one of these audit companies, but at the same time, being able to identify how many hours you use on a specific project and all of that kind of stuff, it is Sue Coffey is correct. Like you can interpret that data really, really poorly without having a better understanding. And so I think that this is one that's going to just continue to have some pushback. My guess is that in the end, the PCAOB is going to want something, and maybe it's a little bit higher level, or maybe it's not quite as granular, that kind of thing. But there's going to be some kind of reporting that's going to come out of this, because originally, right, it's an accountability thing. You want the audit firm to be accountable to the work that they're doing by requiring them to provide this extra information. And so I don't think that the PCAOB is going to budge on that portion. We'll see. We'll see if the AICPA trying to stand up to them does much. But I thought it was super interesting that was an article published on Accounting Today, written by Sue Coffey, directly saying, "Don't do this." Jay, what are your thoughts on that?
I'm thinking there's going to be some compromise at some point, and
right, yeah.
It's going to be the tax bill through the Senate. There's going to be some sort of come together between the Democrats and the Republicans, and the AICPA and the PCAOB is going to come together at some point. They're going to put something on the table that's going to make everybody happy. And some people will not be happy as usual, but you know what? I mean, there'll be something there.
It's going to make everybody unhappy, but less unhappy than they are.
Right. That's exactly it.
And I think that's true, and that's exactly what I would expect as well.
Yeah.
Like the PCAOB wants this. There's a reason why they wanted to issue and require these metrics in the first place, and just giving up on that, they're not going to do that, and nor should they, because, like I said, this information, it has value. Like, there is important information that's in there, and making sure maybe it's even adding color to it, right? Adding some extra interpretation so that it's less likely to be misinterpreted. Like, that can be really important. In other accounting news, the Ohio State CPA Society named a new president, and normally that wouldn't be a big deal, and it would never make the news. But this time it's the first woman to lead the organization. So shout out to Ohio for doing that. All I have to say past that is it's about time. Let's go. Come on. It's nice to see. It's nice to see women leading things. I think that's important. Obviously, Sue Coffey at the AICPA is another example of this. So I hope that we can continue to see that happen, and that we get that old boys club persona out of here. Get rid of that. So here's hoping that I think you're. Oh my gosh, I should have written her name down. How embarrassing. I'm sorry. Here's hoping she does a great job for going forward. I think it's something with the L. Oh my gosh, that's really embarrassing. While I look that up,
Laura Hay.
Yeah, Laura. Let's go. I knew it was an L, and I so fantastic, Laura. Congratulations to you. Go do an awesome job for Ohio. And you guys just knocked down the 150 rule right there. So you're stepping into like a leadership position of a forward-thinking space, at least. So that's be a great example, Laura. We're rooting for you for sure.
I mean, if they're going to be on the forefront of getting rid of the 150-hour rule, maybe they could also start looking at all the jurisdictional payroll tax issues that's going on in Ohio and streamline some of that. Let's work on that as well. Make it a little bit easier to pay our employees in Ohio.
Right, and all the tax related issues of Ohio. I've heard that the state tax there is the worst one to have somebody randomly be associated with, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
In another report that actually dovetails very well with what we were talking about last week, Jay, it is really funny how when we talk about it on the show, the next week some news article comes out that supports exactly what we were just saying. This was another example of that. Gallup released a poll that and there's no shock here, but when employees feel like their companies care less right now, womp womp womp, right? So that is an example of the mental health burden and work-life issue that exists out in the market space right now. And the Gallup poll summarized also that when you do care, right, when you show that you care, your employees are 4.4, which is a weird number, but 4.4 times more likely to be engaged. So when your employees have this perception that you're caring about them, so you're caring about that work-life balance, that you're caring about their mental health, 4.4 times more likely to be engaged, 7 times more likely to recommend that workplace to others, and 73% less likely to be burned out. So that's very consistent with the information that we provided last week of that, like, supporting your team and building a support network around and driving a culture of that support and being aware of that work-life situation is critical to yourself and your teams. And so that Gallup reporting just supports exactly what we'd already talked about, which again is always nice. And then the final thing in just plain accounting news, and Jay, this is one where I'm interested in your thoughts about it. The folks over at Intuit, they're really excited again. They're excited to give away money. They're giving out refunds 5 days early, which is is very much a marketing issue. But Jay, how do we feel about this?
Hey, they're charging you $25. I mean, it's all about the Benjamins for them as well. I'm really curious how they're doing that. Are they? I mean, I know that they love doing the refund anticipation loans and getting you the money in your pocket first early, and then they would get your refund. I don't know if that has any part of it. I haven't really dove into it. Sori talked a little bit about it and how if you're using Credit Karma, you can get $4,000 advance update within 1 day. So it's pretty. I mean, they're playing games with that, but I don't exactly know how the 5 days earlier works. I'm assuming that it's either they're taking some risk or something on that. I don't know. Yeah. But it will cost you $25.
Yeah, there you go. I mean, then $25 for 5 days that's not a bad rate for Intuit, probably.
I mean, frankly, if I'm going and filing a tax return on TurboTax, and I'm filing it as Chris Guino, I will be glad to pay $25 to get my $5,000 refund that he is due. I mean, are they opening some of this up to fraud as well?
That is an issue that I think is one that I'm sure that they will say that they care about, but I'm sure that they have some type of thing in place to manage to some degree, but it's one that I'm sure will be abused in some way or another for sure.
Yeah, hey, IRS, check out where their WISP is. I'd love to know.
Let's go.
And by the way, I'm just jesting that I would file a tax return on TurboTax. Never do it.
That sounds right to me. It's been years since I've done that. Years.
I mean, considering I avoided the NFL this weekend just so I wouldn't hear sponsored by Intuit TurboTax.
Wow, yeah, that's a good one. Too funny. That is the accounting news. In tech-related news, a couple interesting things have happened. One is over in the UK. OpenTax, which is a VAT and payee platform for the UK, launched an automated client communication tool within their product, which when I first read it, I was like, whoa, that's really dope. But then when I started to think about it a little more, I was like, wait a second, hold on. Do we like this? Would we want our communications to clients to be automated? Jay, what do you think?
With the right AI, maybe. I mean,
Yeah,
there would
right.
have to be a lot of testing involved before you unleash that. But, in this day and age, I can see that to a point. But yeah,
yeah.
you got to have
So,
some
okay.
controls around that.
That's right. That's really important, right? And so it's the same type of thing, right? You don't want people to take advantage of this. You don't want to like have the wrong releases happen, right? You don't want to impact your client experience just to automate some messages that are going out. But if you think about it and you're planning for it appropriately, like those types of things are super cool. And so my expectation is if they don't already, some of our partners here in the U.S., maybe the folks at TurboTax, will be firing off automated client communication. I get automated client communications from TurboTax, and I haven't filed with them in years. So so I'm sure there's some aspects of that are really valuable.
I mean, are these impactful communications, or are they, hey, we're too busy to talk to you, call back tomorrow? I mean,
Yes. That is a really good question. I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah.
And the way that I thought about it, right? If I was thinking about automated client communications, it's hello, it's January 14th. We're going to be working on your tax return in X weeks, which means assuming that you do this list of things, right?
Yeah.
Right? So it's your like canned request list, that kind of thing, and then a follow up, right? Of you have not provided X, Y, and Z documents. Please provide these by this day, right? And those types of communications, I think if you're automating those, like that's probably really valuable because anytime you have that reminder set up to facilitate like an action, like that's really positive. But if it's an automated communication of you need to pay this much dollars on this day because of this evaluation that we've done for you, and maybe that's a little more. Maybe could use a little more human touch.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it's built off the old pizza tracker. You know, you hit this milestone, you get a message. You hit this milestone, you get a message. Yeah. So I mean, some of that is pretty decent communication, keeping the client up to date on status. But yeah, I mean, hey, we're going to debit your bank account for $500,000 because of this.
Yeah, maybe a little more touch is better. So I don't know. Regardless, I think continued automation improvements around taxes specifically, and then also around client communications is going to be something that we'll continue to see in 2025. And so if it's an app or a software that your company uses, take a look at it, see if it's something that can be valuable to you. Our friends at Ramp made the news this week because they're syncing up with Workday so that you can see what's going on and see everything in a little bit more real time. So good job by Ramp. And then I also saw that Blaze, which is a cannabis support tool, is syncing up with Sage, and I thought that was interesting because the cannabis space has a little bit of taboo associated with it, but as states continue to adopt, and the federal government considers changing the whatever status, the level
scheduling.
The scheduling of cannabis and cannabis related products. I think you'll continue to see like more and more activity in that space. And so as we see more adoption, my expectation, Jay, is that we'll start to see more accounting programs and support programs start to team up a little bit more in this kind of way. And as we've talked about several times, and like I just talked about with OpenTax, like when one person starts to do it, then you start to see a lot of people do it. And
exactly.
So I think that my expectation, Jay, is that that's what's going to happen here. Do you have any extra thoughts on that?
No, I'm just surprised that it's taking as long as it has to change the scheduling of cannabis at this point.
Yeah.
You know, the FDA has already made the recommendation, and we're just waiting on the old white guys in Congress to act on it at this point, I guess. So let's get it done.
Well, we'll see. Maybe that'll be day one. Maybe that'll be a day one issue next week.
Maybe, yeah.
Maybe next week.
Well, I'll be paying attention on Monday, for sure.
It's For sure. Something's going to happen on Monday. We'll see. We'll see what it is. All right, and Jay, that was the tech news that I saw this week. What did I miss, or did I miss anything?
I think you did a good job there. Yeah.
All right, fantastic. All right, so carrying on then to our main topic for today, marketing your services can be really challenging. Like we talk about that a lot here at High Rock. Like, where can people see you? Who do you want to even like show your product to? Like, who are you trying to target? It's a challenge that faces all of us. And so over this episode and the next one, so the next 2 episodes, we're going to talk through some of the fundamentals of marketing yourself and your firm. So that's going to focus on a few different things, but it's going to start like with this with what's marketing really, right? What are some foundational strategies that accounting firms need to implement to effectively market their services in 2025? So now, so Jay, when I think about like marketing and why it's important, we've talked about this before, I think, in that like you need some type of way for people to find you, and more and more and more people are finding people through the internet, through social media, through YouTube, through all of those different types of things. And so that means that especially in a competitive landscape and in this tech-driven environment, that it's that much more important to make sure you have a platform for yourself. And so identifying the ways that you can do that have been something that I think, at least in my own experience, that accounting firms have shied away from. Like I still don't know that I've run into that many like financial statement auditors on Twitter, right? They're just not there. Like obviously there's this whole community of tax people, so tax Twitters out there, but I just don't see that many people who are like, I used to be an auditor, and now I'm interacting with people online, right? It's just not. Yeah. I just don't see that very much, and so it seems like the like accounting firms have a difficult time adopting marketing just broadly. JD,
accountants in general have a hard time doing marketing, right. And as somebody that stepped into that, myself, I had to go to a chamber market networking event weekly just to get myself comfortable talking in front of people. We didn't do that. We weren't meant to do that. We're meant to sit there at our desk behind our keyboard and do entry, do all these fun things, and we're not meant to talk about ourselves and what we do. But the landscape is changing.
That's right.
And that's why we're here. And you talk about marketing for your company and yourself, and none of this is in the notes here. I'm coming off this because as I was reviewing this after I sent it to you, it's like we never threw anything in there about a personal brand. So if you are a solo practitioner and you're the man, you are there talking to your clients, you're doing all the work. It is your personal brand that you're working with. But like us, we have the High Rock brand, and then there's the Chris brand, the J brand, and everybody has what they're known for and what they specialize in, and that is what you want to highlight. You want to show off what differentiates you from the competition and everybody out there. And think about that big blue ocean. If you didn't differentiate yourself, it'd just be a huge, vast blue ocean. But, I am a little red in that blue ocean. Chris is gray in that blue ocean. And, that's what it's about. And, we have our own little specializations. So, yeah.
And there are so many companies that need support. We just talked about it. Like between companies and people, 140 million returns, right? Like that's a lot. There are not 140 million accountants. There's certainly not 140 million tax preparers. There are lots of clients out there and lots of people that need assistance. And so because of that, you have a really big pool in that ocean that if you can highlight the people that you're best able to support, you'll be able to sustain your business without any issue.
Chris, though, what you said there aren't 140 million accountants out there. Well, just to put it in perspective, if there were 140 million accountants at COVID time, there's half of that now.
That's true.
So there you go. I just want to throw that out there.
Well, and actually, I saw that too, right? I saw an article on Twitter earlier this week that there's only something like 600,000 CPAs in the U.S.
Yeah.
And that, and if you do that math, and I'm not going to try to do it here live, right? But it's a pretty good amount, just across everybody, right? So there's a good opportunity to be able to service people who do exactly what you're skilled at doing, and be able to show yourself as someone who's a leader in that space. And that starts with the first topic that we're going to talk about, and that's defining your niche, right? And so there's been a lot of talk, I think, in the accounting space of, do you just want to be a generalist, or should you pick a niche, or what does that even really mean? And so let's talk about that first, Jay. Like, when you think about niching, like, what does that mean to you?
To me, it means having a narrow focus.
Yeah.
Being the expert in that field, and being able to show off that expertise so that you can stick out in that big blue ocean. And by doing so, not only do you stick out, but you are more efficient. You can do it much quicker and easier, and that allows you to take on more clients at the same time. And by applying it to what we're talking about, by having a specific niche, you're targeting your marketing efforts to a single group. Because, the old adage is, if you're not talking to someone, you're talking to no one. So if you have a general message, it's just going to be out there in the ether, and it's not going to be picked up. But if you're talking like we do on a daily basis to e-commerce companies, that's what's being heard, that's who's hearing your message, and you're driving that message home. And those in real estate or in construction, they're not paying attention to it, so there's no distraction. So it helps drive that message and have it be heard, and have you be seen. Right.
Yeah, and I think that there's a lot of different ways that can be important to you. And Jay's highlighted a few of them, right? The first one is that when you're targeted on a specific industry, there's a couple things that happen for you. The first thing is that you start to develop that expertise in that space, where you understand the problems that those business owners are running into. You understand the tax strategies that they may be able to implement. You understand what their chart of accounts should look like if you're helping them to do their bookkeeping and that kind of support. Like, you start to be able to say, this is exactly what I expect from your company, and here's where your company has an opportunity to take advantage of some of your own strategic advantage, or this is where you can cut some costs because you're overspending what we typically see in this space. And being able to provide that actionable advice is exactly what makes niching so valuable to you, because outside of the fact that you can scale it a little bit easier because you're doing the same thing over and over, you also can charge a premium because you're able to say, I am an expert in this thing. And so because of that, you have this ability to show a little bit of extra value where somebody who's maybe touching a whole bunch of different things can't do that same thing. And then Jay also mentioned like that ability to duplicate the work, right? So when you've built out that model where you have a full understanding of exactly what those businesses need to look like, when you start to do closes and reviews of financial statements over and over, like, you start to understand exactly what to look for, and they should start to look the same, right? You can build out schedules and worksheets that support the same types of things that you'd expect to see for that business. You can identify KPIs and metrics that are important to the business owners so that you can highlight that for them before they even ask you for it. And that again allows you to be able to highlight your value. And so by doing that, and those are some stories that I can think about, right? Is when we've been able to say, like, this is what I would expect here, right? As I've looked at e-commerce companies, I expect the ROAS in this range, right? And yours is way higher than that. And so there's a couple different things that means. The first is maybe you can spend a little bit more and make a lot more money. Or maybe you've got some strategic advantage here where you can take advantage of this opportunity that you have this extra return when you're building out your own content, right? These types of situations are those where you can provide really powerful and important advice, and that's why niching around this can be so important. Jay, do you have any stories that you can think of where being niched in an e-commerce space has been really valuable for you or for High Rock?
Oh, well, for me, yeah. I mean, as I was growing it, and keep in mind, I was doing e-commerce well before COVID. Yeah. So there weren't as many players in that market. And by being niched into it, I was being compared to 3 or 4 different firms at that point. And it allowed me to get more reach. Today, the market is much more crowded, and it's harder to get that because it's oversaturated in e-commerce accountants. Not saying that's a bad thing because there's enough customers out there, but it allowed me to get more customers faster and easier, and right. It also, the referrals were spinning like crazy then too. So it was very different than it is today, where it's almost commoditized and everybody's looking for price and things like that. So now you have to stand out even more to make it work, and you have to show your expertise. And like just talking, e-commerce, there are a couple different factors at play there. Like, we have the sales tax environment where that compliance area is so ripe for picking because a lot of companies just don't understand it. So if you can stand out and show your expertise there, one of my expertise is in inventory management systems. So, being able to implement them, enhance them, make them more efficient, or even get them to the point where you're using AI for prediction and things like that, Right. Being able to show off your skills there. Sorry, I still got this dang cough. So it allows you to become the expert and show off what you're doing, and that gets you noticed because people can see your expertise in your blogs and your videos and things like that. So, by having that expertise and showing it off, you're just elevating yourself. And, right. If you didn't have that expertise and you're just talking about everything across e-commerce instead of just picking on some of those special things, you're going to blend in, like we were talking about. So even within a niche, you kind of have to niche down a little bit within there as well.
Right. And again, being able to do so is what distinguishes you. And then Jay started to talk about how you can distinguish yourself, and that's actually the second point that we wanted to talk about today, and that's content marketing and value-driven outreach. And so the way that you highlight that brand used to be like, right, you would do a good job and you'd get that referral, right? That was the baseline of how things were happening. But people just aren't finding content that way anymore. People aren't finding their accountants that way. People now, they want to read a blog. So you can write those specific blogs around the five sales tax tips that you've run into for Shopify sellers, right? Around that area of expertise that you've seen and you've touched directly, because that's an area that's important to other business owners. And so being able to showcase your expertise in all kinds of different fashions is what can be really important to you on a going forward basis. And so that content marketing is the way that you can highlight the expertise that you have in the niche area that you've identified for yourself. You can do that in lots of different ways, right? You can do that through a blog. You can do that through video content like this. And you can even, in live sessions like this, you have the ability to include questions and answers, right? To allow yourself, again, that opportunity to show your expertise. If someone asks about a specific blog point that you're talking about, right? If you've set up to talk about marketing, and somebody asks a marketing related question, and you're able to highlight for them, hey, here's why this thing is this is the thing that I look for. This is what I expect to see. That highlights your expertise. It gives you this ability to showcase again that skill set that you've developed. YouTube, I think, is really valuable in this, or doing these live videos is valuable in this, because there are lots of other things that you can do through that as well. The first one is like people get to hear what you sound like. They get to understand the relationship that they'll have, but without actually even talking to you, right? So I think that's a part of social media and those aspects that you can't really define in a perfect way, but that become really important.
I think a key there is, and this is stepping back or forward, however you want to look at it, but one of the things that you want to do when you bring on a new client is build a relationship. Right. And in order to do that, you have to they have to know you, they have to like you, and they have to trust you. So the know, like, and trust thing. So by doing this, they're already getting some of that up front. They're listening to you, they're taking some of your advice, and they're not going to listen to you if they don't like you. They're not going to watch a video for an hour if they don't like you. So they know, like, and trust you because of what you're doing right here. And You're shortening that cycle to actually go through the conversion cycle, get them to trust you, because as an accountant, we get down into a lot of different topics with our clients, and in order to deliver the advice that they need or want, they have to give it up. They have to talk and tell us what they want, what their desires are, what their experiences have been. So this helps accelerate that, whether it's the buying cycle or the building the relationship cycle. So, there's multifaceted reasons why to do content like this.
Well, and then another thing that becomes really important is that, particularly with YouTube, that content just continues to live out there. And so as you build on it, right, you start to build a portfolio of the different things that you're an expert in. So if somebody wants to listen to you talk about sales tax advice, they can go to your sales tax video. But when they need an Ohio payroll tax point, they can go to that video as well. Or when you start to talk about marketing in either an accounting capacity or in e-commerce capacity, like, those videos are going to exist out there as well. And so the more content that you have that, again, is seen, like, it becomes more real. Like, that's the way I think about it. The other thing related to content marketing and that value-driven outreach, right, is that you can also turn those longer videos into short-form videos. So you can take that content that you've delivered, you can break it down into bite-sized little chunks that make it easy for someone to digest on other platforms like TikTok or Instagram, so that you can expand your reach in that way as well. And so I think you'll actually see us experiment with some of that over the next few months as we take clips like maybe this one right here and talk about how important and valuable it can be to take things that you're already highlighting for people and break it down into bite-sized chunks so that you can see it quickly, so you can identify the things that are valuable, because an hour is a lot of time to commit. But 10 seconds, not that much. And so if you can see something that's really important in a short period of time, that allows you to build that portfolio of expertise, so that when people are looking for someone in the e-commerce space, maybe related to maybe sales tax support or inventory management system support, they know who to look for.
And we're going to talk about it next week on part 2, but you could also take that short form content and throw some ad dollars behind it and start generating. And the reason I bring that up, and Chris is well aware, I don't know if he knows where I'm going with this yet, but there has been some very targeted short form videos, and talking about some very specific niches. It's it's that tax planning and the tax strategies right now that are out there. I find that completely. I don't want to say funny or whatever, but sometimes I find it offensive. But
Right.
because I'm on the IRS website, or I am looking at tax strategies myself for things for clients, or on accounting, I am targeted by these ads, and it is driving me absolutely bonkers. But
Right.
it's there, and as soon as I see the face, I know the message is coming. Scroll, hey, yes, I am a W-2 worker. Yes, I know what you're going to tell me. Bye. I'm out of here. So.
And so that's, again, that short form video allows you the opportunity to hopefully not be annoying, but actually be a value provider, right? And that's how you can identify that value drive, is by taking the things that are important, cutting them out, highlighting them, and making sure that people can see that expertise that you have. And all of those things work together to lead toward social proof.
For sure.
The power of social proof is that ultimately what you're doing is, ultimately, let's just put this out there. Accounting and accounting support is a trust relationship. People trust that you're doing the right things with their books and records. They trust that you're giving them proper advice. They trust that expertise that you have is coming through and being highlighted for them. And so without that trust, you really have nothing. And so building social proof and building that trust is critical to the accounting profession, and to advisors that go along with the accounting profession as well. And it's so important to be able to say, this is why I'm an expert in this space. It builds that trust, and it comes from lots of different areas, because social proof isn't just me telling you about an experience that I had. Social proof comes from the interactions with people around you as well. And that's exactly what, if you think about the way that accountant referrals that we talked about earlier, that they used to be, that's social proof in a different sense. It's exactly what it is. And so one thing that you'll want to make sure that you're doing, if you're looking to make sure that you're an expert in something, is have your clients tell you that. Collect and showcase those client testimonials. You want people to be able to say, yeah, when Chris talks to you about those types of about those ROAS numbers, he knows what he's talking about, and this is how he helped me, right? And if people are able to do that for you, that gives that confidence in future clients, of that ability that you're going to have and that expertise that you can have. And there are so many places out there where you can either see these reviews or have them highlighted. Understand what those are, right? Understand that a Google review or case study around it, right? Those are really important in building trust, and how important they can be. And so, that's what people look at when they're first when you first Google HiRock. That's what you're going to look at, is the reviews of HiRock, or those testimonials that come up on the front page, right? Those are really important things. And so continuing to be able to deliver high quality service and value added expertise can go so far in building out that social proof for yourself. Jay, what do you think about that? How do you go about that, or what do you like about that?
No, I think it's super valuable, and you have to do that. And that's why you see a lot of companies offer discounts if you refer another client. They will give you a month free or something like that, or throw you a referral fee if you refer other clients. They will throw you a gift card for submitting a Google review, because it is so valuable to the supplier or the vendor or the professional to have that information.
Right.
And the other part of this is you want to turn your customers, your users, your clients into raving fans.
Right.
Make them ambassadors like me. I've been a Zero ambassador since 2016. Why? Because I love the product, and I've pretty much built the last 10 years of what I've done around Zero, and it's just made me so much more efficient that I love talking about it and helping others with it. So what you want to do with your firm or your business is the same thing. Get your clients to love you as much as I love Zero, and talk about it. And it's luckily for me, it's easy because Zero. I mean, it just is. But to have that, people wanting to talk about you without being prompted, it's just amazing. And I don't know what more to say about that at this point. So.
Well, I mean, I think that's exactly the whole point of this message, right? Is ultimately what being an expert that can add value and drive value for your clients, what that comes down to is exactly what Jay talked about, right? When you do all the things that you're already skilled at and you do it well, your clients are going to understand that. And they're going to be able to allow you to build the social proof by highlighting your expertise through content marketing within your niche. And so those are all the things that we talked about today, is defining and understanding your niche, making sure that you understand where your expertise lies, where you're excited about, right? That's an important thing around your niche, is the excitement that comes with being able to help people in that space and provide value to people in that space. And when you do that, you have that opportunity, like Jay's talking about, to show and share your excitement through the value that you can create for people. And being able to do that again highlights and comes across in that same way for them as well, so that they can be that social proof for you to say, yeah, this is a guy who really loves to do what he's doing and really can provide value for you as well. Here's how he did it for me, right? And those types of things, being able to do that is a critical foundation to your marketing effort. And so I think if we leave you with anything today, it's that being an expert has value beyond just the knowledge base that you have. It allows you to build a marketplace for yourself, to create content that highlights and expresses that value. And then it ultimately allows you to build out social proof, because when you're able to express that value and expertise to people, they're going to thank you for it. And so because of that, those are the things that we want you to work on this week. When we come back next week, we're going to talk a little bit more about scaling your marketing and some other tactics that you can use as well. So make sure to tune in next week for that conversation as we go further into marketing and marketing tactics. And so before we leave you this week, Jay, do you have an automation of the week?
So funny you should say that. So. Yeah, I do. So I told you earlier today that I have an automation set up to create the thumbnails for the show now. And so basically I have a template built, and based on the title, we can actually put that information in the thumbnail and download it and push it out to push it back into YouTube. Well, I've started an automation where I create our stream, and that data is now pulled out and goes into Airtable, which next step will be to run that information through ChatGPT and a custom GPT or an assistant that I've built that will rewrite that and create the thumbnail, create the keywords, and complete the entire setup of the video for us. So yeah, that's the automation. It's in process right now.
Yeah. Well, so, I can't wait to see it in action.
Yeah.
And it speaks to exactly the content marketing that we're trying to do here, and how we're trying to make automations and AI work for that as well. Which I think we'll talk a little bit more about next week too. So
for sure.
So stay tuned and look out for that. Have a great week, everyone. We will see you right here at 3 or 4 o'clock Central, 5 o'clock Eastern. Right time, get the right time. 4 o'clock Central, 5 o'clock Eastern, right here next Tuesday. We'll see you talking about marketing one more time to go a little bit deeper into advanced tactics. So see you all next week.
Have a great week, everybody. We'll see you next week. Bye.
Bye, everyone.